And welcome back. The Department of Health and Human Services is turning nutrition guidelines on its head with an upside-down food pyramid, putting red meat first and carbs last. Joining us now to talk more about what this means for Memphians is Dr. Rick Bloomer, Dean of the College of Health Sciences at the University of Memphis. Dr. Bloomer, welcome to 3 at 3. Good to see you here. Appreciate you doing this with us. Let's talk about the food pyramid and these changes. What do they mean?
Well, a lot of changes, first of all, and I think it's something that I'm frankly excited about because this is something that we definitely need. As we talked about earlier, the United States and Memphis in particular is in a really bad spot from a health perspective. We now have 7 out of 10 individuals in the U.S. who are either overweight or obese, 70%.
7 out of 10? 7
out of 10 who are either overweight or obese based on BMI standards. In Memphis, Tennessee, the obesity rate alone is 45%, 10% higher than the national average of about 34 to 35%. In addition, we have about 50% of Americans who either have diabetes or they have pre-diabetes. Heart disease, hypertension, certain forms of cancer, many of which are linked to what we call lifestyle disease. So we know there are certain things that could be done to mitigate those diseases. This is one of those things, altering dietary intake.
So, doctor, when it comes to these dietary changes or guidelines, what are some of the pros and perhaps cons of this? What do you like, what don't you really like?
What I first like is the tagline, eat real food. I like the idea of eating real food. Second, I like the reduction in added sugars, and I also like the reduction in eating highly processed foods. Those things are really important for individuals. Drinking water or non-calorie containing beverages also really important. And the other thing that they really changed significantly is the protein requirement, which for years has been the RDA at 0.8 grams per kilogram. They've gone up to 150 to 200%. Now at 1.2 grams per kilo to 1.6 grams per kilo.
That's a major development there.
Significant development. Much of that's based on the research. Now a lot of people say people don't need more protein, but perhaps not to function, but to function optimally. The evidence when you look at the protein literature and focus on what the protein scientists have to say, not individuals who want to opine on the food pyramid, but what real scientists are doing work on the protein requirements, the data are fairly clear. It's much higher than 0.8 grams per kilogram. So I think they got it right there. I'm not certain that people need to go all the way to the 1.6, depending on what they're doing in terms of physical activity, but definitely higher than the 0.8.
So, doctor, we have about a minute left. As Memphians, as Smith Southerners, how do we go about implementing these changes, having conversations, or where do these conversations take place?
Well, I think individuals, first of all, I'd encourage them to look at the website. Just looking at the picture of the food pyramid isn't enough. If you go on the website, there's a lot more detail in terms of serving sizes and how things could be broken down. Second, I think individuals would want to take the time and effort to meet with a registered licensed dietitian nutritionist, because he or she could sit with them, help them to better understand exactly what this means for them, and then how to put together a meal plan that they're going to be able to adopt as a lifestyle approach rather than a short-term diet.
So perhaps some of our churches, synagogues, schools need to have some of these conversations?
I think that would be a great idea. People need to fully understand what this means and how to implement it, how to go to the grocery store and purchase the foods that fit within this, and then how to go home in their own kitchen and actually prepare meals that fit those particular guidelines.
Doctor, you have given us a lot to think about, a lot to chew on, as they say.
Yes, sir.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Let's do this again.
Yes.
All right. A short break.